Coverage for you, and Stephen Holder reporting on what's going on with the Colts regarding Andrew Luck. Stephen Holder, asked the head coach specifically whether the team's record or the stage of the season will impact Luck's decision to play or have him play. Got an emphatic no. In other words, if he's healthy, they'll put him out there. That is what it looks like it's going to be in Indianapolis. Meanwhile, things have not gone well.
Don't hold
Steelers, I won't. Steelers wideout Martavis Bryant this season. Only 3 catches in his last 2 games. Just 1 touch on the season. And this member of the Killer Bees wants a bigger role in the offense. Has talked about maybe being traded. Here's Ben Roethlisberger.
Well, you never hear him complain. I don't hear him on the field crying, complaining, wanting the ball, throwing his hands up, not running hard, doing things like that. You see him blocking after other guys catch the ball or during runs. I grab him on the sideline and talk to him about the pictures like I do with a lot of guys, and he's very engaging, so that's why all this was kind of a shock to me.
How do these kind of things affect the locker room?
They don't.
Why is that?
Because they don't. We don't allow it to. Like I said, Martavis is out there busting his butt. I mean, you watch, like I said, on Le'Veon's long play, he's downfield blocking. He's blocking for AB in the Kansas City game. So you hear frustrations kind of when he goes home and gets on social media and here in the locker room and stuff. We don't see any of that. And so that's why, potentially, I think maybe that's why it's treated a little bit differently.
Ben, are we 1 touchdown pass to Martavis from all this sort of going away?
Hopefully we're lots of touchdown passes. You know, we need to get lots of footballs to him.
But will they? For more on this, let's bring in our Steelers reporter, Jeremy Fowler. Jeremy, this has been quite the saga for the last couple of days. Let's run through it. Martavis said he wants a trade. Maybe he doesn't want a trade. He told Josina Anderson, I just want some clarity what my role is by the trade deadline. Head coach Mike Tomlin used the phrase, among others, rain down my judgment at some point. What the heck is going on?
Trey, a never dull moment here in Pittsburgh. And so right now the Steelers are practicing. Ben Roethlisberger was expected to speak with Bryant today about that role so they can just try to get on the same page. When Bryant's in the game, he will get his targets, not as many as he wants because he believes he's a potential #1 receiver. That's why he wants to be traded. But if he has to stay here, he wants the ball more. He does want clarity in that role. And so Tomlin said he's going to punish him, which could mean a playing time situation. I don't necessarily think they're going to fine him or suspend him, but they could hold him out of some practice time. And it could affect his preparation, especially with Juju Smith-Schuster perking up from concussion protocol. And so if they have their full arsenal, Bryant could be in the playbook. But, I don't know if he's going to get what he wants unless he and Roethlisberger can just find a rhythm somehow, whether in practice or on Sundays. Roethlisberger said that he's overthrown him a little bit at times. He does want to clean that up, and nobody's really given up on him just yet.
Okay, you mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster. He's part of the problem here if you look at it from Martavis because he's played really well and he's made the most of his opportunities. You have an update on a much lighter note on his bike situation, which was stolen.
Well, apparently Team Juju got together and found the bike. Mount Oliver Police Department, it was turned into them late last night. And so Juju is in the process of obtaining that bike once again. And so he's got this youthful exuberance around here that the teammates seem to love. They all got on this Team Find Juju's Bike social media kick. But also this week, I was told from Alejandro Villanueva, the left tackle, that he's been giving Juju driving lessons on the side, and that this week Juju got his learner's permit, which usually you're about 15 years old when you get. 5 years too late for Juju, but at least he's going to be able to have new fresh wheels, 4 instead of 2. But Villanueva did add he's not quite ready for the full license yet because his parallel parking needs some serious work.
Well, everybody's parallel parking probably needs some serious work. All right, Jeremy, thanks very much. That I find the most fascinating out of all of this. He still doesn't have his driver's license at the age of 20. But good for them. They got the bike back, and now he's going to get his learner's permit to drive a bigger vehicle. All right, Herm, let's talk about the other wide receiver here, Martavis Bryant.
Sure.
Look, everybody wants, especially, they're called wide redivas for a reason.
They're always open.
They're always open.
Like
they can make every
they're
catch,
always open.
Yada, yada, yada. However, it's working right now for Pittsburgh with Le'Veon and Antonio and Juju Smith-Schuster. What would your conversation be as head coach with Martavis about all of this?
Well, first of all, don't press send.
Yeah.
Don't press send. Don't put that information. If you have a gripe with our organization, come see me. My door is always open. And I would frankly tell him this. This is how it works. We basically average about 35 passes a game. That's the number for the most part. 18 of those targets go to Bell and Brown.
Right.
There's 17 left. You've been targeted 6 times. The third most of any receiver beside Brown and Bell, obviously. Now, to get those targets up, guess what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to cut the targets from somewhere else. Where should that come from? because Juju Smith-Schuster, he's getting 4. Jesse James, the other tight end, is getting 4.
Yeah.
So, what am I supposed to do? Now, this works this way. When we throw it to you, you got to catch it too. You got to help us out, okay? Because there's only so many passes that we actually can throw in a football game. And right now, you're the 3rd most targeted guy we have on our football team. Now, he wants to be the first guy. A little bit of this is his own making as well, because remember this guy has missed 20 games due to suspension. So with that being said, how are you going to actually formulate a game plan around a guy where you go, is he available? Got to be available in football as well, right? That has something to do with how you set your offense.
Well, that brings us to the next point here. He says he wants to be traded if his role isn't expanded. Mike Tomlin doesn't really care about that. He's like, you're here until we'll deal with you. But what Herm just alluded to, there have been issues with Martavis in the past. Now this comes out publicly. How tradable is he, and what could you actually get for him that might be value based on what we just talked about?
Well, I'm not sure he's very tradable to begin with.
Right.
Excuse me. Secondly, the value is exceedingly limited. What's the most important ability? Availability.
Right.
And he's not been available through his own fault. And now he's turning around and saying, oh, well, I want to be more a part of the offense. How about being here? Yeah. Let's start there. Secondly, Juju Smith-Schuster has beaten him out, in essence. So, where is the market for him?
Yeah.
Now,
and Trey, look, no fault of his own. He's a little bit limited in what he's going to be asked to do as a wide receiver. He's basically a vertical threat.
He's the home run.
Yeah, he's a home run guy. Right. Okay, so that's really the hardest ball to complete. The odds of completing that are it's more difficult than slants and hooks and things like that. Now, will they build that into to his ability to catch the ball more? Yeah, maybe you can do that. You can help him out, but it is what it is right now. He's the 3rd guy, and Smith is starting to move up, and maybe will overtake that.
Well, he's an incomplete wide receiver because he hasn't been there to practice.
Right.
He hasn't been there.
Suspended all of last
year.
year.
To develop his 1.5 seasons.
Yeah.
He's been suspended. He hasn't developed his skill. By the way, he's also not a free agent.
Yeah, they got him for this year and next year.
Yeah, had he been there, he would be approaching his free agency this offseason. And believe me, that's got to play into his considerations too. He's not making a lot of money,
right?
And he's probably not made or not kept a lot, and he's in a situation where he'd like to make more. But I don't know what his value is.
We'd all like to make more.
We all would, yes. That's exactly right.
But Pittsburgh holds all the keys to this.
They do.
Because if he has a pretty good year and Smith continues to develop, hey, when the draft is about to take place, guess what? You can use him as a piece, right?
Yeah, he's available.
As Mike Tomlin said, he'll rain down his judgment on this sooner rather than later. That's one of the greatest phrases.
He's already made
that's one of the greatest phrases I've heard in a long time. Okay, so it doesn't look like he's going to be traded, but let's talk about some trades. And let's go back to ESPN insider extraordinaire Adam Schefter. 6 days until the trade deadline, which is Tuesday. Now, Adam, normally there's not a lot of activity around the trade deadline in the NFL, but every once in a while we get one that scratches our head. You put up a column on ESPN.com about 6 trades that you think you'd like to see just for fun. And the first one you want to start off with here is Miami trading Jarvis Landry. What's going on there?
Well, let's be clear, Trey. These trades are not happening. We actually have a trade that just happened. The Chargers traded Dontrell Inman to the Chicago Bears for a 7th-round draft choice. These are trades that we've proposed that make sense, but will not be done before the deadline. So we'll start with Jarvis Landry, and we'll talk about the Miami Dolphins sending him to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a 2nd-round draft pick. Jacksonville to use another wide receiver. Dolphins have obviously a situation there where they need to sign Landry, and if not sign him, then maybe move on to him. This is a trade I think that would make some sense for both teams. Both teams would benefit from it. Won't happen, but it would make some sense in the future. Jarvis Landry on the short week this week against the Baltimore Ravens. How about the Jets trading Matt Forte to the Baltimore Ravens for a 5th-round pick? Matt Forte has shown that he can be productive. The Jets already have Bilal Powell. They have Elijah McGuire. They have a lot of young players. Forte could go to a place like Baltimore, make a difference. With 39 carries this season, Forte hasn't been an integral part of the Jets' offense, so the Ravens will be able to add a shorthanded option on the cheap. How about Teddy Bridgewater to the Arizona Cardinals for a conditional draft pick? Now, let me say this. Minnesota never would trade Teddy Bridgewater. He's the golden child there. They love him. But Arizona's going to need to find a quarterback somewhere, and Teddy's contract is up after this season. And the Arizona Cardinals would make a lot of sense for Bridgewater, so why not get something back from him now? The Vikings won't do that, but it would make a lot of sense to do that. We'll see what happens. Marcel Darius, the Buffalo Bills' disgruntled defensive lineman. How about trading him to Dallas for a 5th-round draft pick? Again, here's a player that has not played to his potential in Buffalo. The Bills, I'm sure if another team approached them, would listen. Dallas could always use some extra help along its defensive line. Marcel Darius for the Cowboys won't happen, but it would make some sense. And then, of course, Dwayne Brown reported to the Texans this week. The Texans have said they won't trade him. I think Dwayne Brown will be open to a trade. How about trading him to Seattle for a 2nd-round draft pick? Now, Seattle's moved a lot of its picks, doesn't have a lot of ammunition, but we are in a situation there where maybe the Seahawks could use a player like Dwayne Brown in Seattle to help fortify their offensive line at this time. Again, and then John Brown, the Arizona Cardinals wide receiver with Arizona right now descending. Buffalo could use a player like John Brown, a playmaker like John Brown. How about sending him to Buffalo for a 5th-round draft pick? John Brown's contract is up after this year. Could leave Arizona without Arizona getting anything. Why not trade him to a team like Buffalo in the midst of a playoff run who can use his services now? Again, won't happen, but we're proposing them as if they would make sense if they would happen. But again, one trade that did just happen, Dontrell Inman dealt from the Los Angeles Chargers to the wide receiver needy Chicago Bears for a 7th-round draft pick. Maybe this will inspire the Bears to throw the football more than 7 times a game.
And get more than 4 completions. All right, Adam Schefter, thanks very much. The Dwayne Brown trade is interesting because Texans are playing Seattle this week. So just stay. Just bring everything up and stay with you. Brown says he's optimistic he's going to be out there Sunday and getting some work in pads will be good. That according to Aaron Wilson, covering the Texans for the Houston Chronicle. All right, Bill, we just went through all those trades. Would you pull the trigger on any of those for either team?
Well, you got to keep in mind that there are cap considerations
Correct.
here, which Adam didn't take into consideration. I would think about Brown to Seattle.
Really?
That makes sense. The obvious is, of course, they're playing, so you take that out of the picture. The team that could really use Matt Forte is Minnesota.
Yeah.
I believe that he would be the last piece in the puzzle for a team that's ready to go all the way. And they need a second back to be able to take some of the load off McKinnon and let Latavius Murray be the short yardage goal line guy.
Right.
That's a complete group. That's the really only hole in that team. So, you know, I'd be anxious to do that if I were Minnesota.
It is interesting what you just said. We're talking about the Minnesota Vikings with Sam Bradford out, and we don't know what's going on with Teddy Bridgewater, but even with Case Keenum running that team, they have a lot of things that could make them very interesting going forward. Herman, is there any one of those trades?
Marcel Darius to Dallas. Rod Marinelli would get whatever this guy has, he'd get it out of him. And I think if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you need an inside presence as far as maybe rushing the passer and pushing the pocket. This guy would obviously play the 3 technique like Warren did for us in Tampa, same similar defense. And he would get, this guy would reach his potential. If he couldn't reach his potential with Rod Marinelli, he's out of the league.
We've seen flashes of it at
Yes.
times. That's why they gave him
That's
that
the
big
problem.
contract.
Yeah, that's the problem.
But not the consistent play.
By
Again,
the way,
yeah.
Teddy's contract may toll. I don't think it's necessarily up. There's an issue that
Bridgewater's contract?
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly right. I'm not certain that it tolls. I'll research it, but that's in the picture.
Gotcha. Keep in mind, we're talking about this trade deadline. We've had one trade. Not a lot usually happens. Last year, for example, there were 4 deals around the deadline. 3 involved the Patriots. There were 4 deals within a week of the deadline in 2014 and 2015 combined.
Yes.
So it's always fun to talk about. We don't see a lot of action like the NBA trade deadline.
It's not like baseball.
No, it is not at all. All right, when we come back, trades may not be a big part of football, but celebrations certainly are. And we've got 13 helmets down, 19 to go. We'll celebrate all 32 on this edition of NFL Live. And as I was saying, celebrations are here, but the song Celebration holds a special place in one NFL team's heart.
Celebration. It made its way into our locker room. It was a constant theme.
Celebrate, baby! Celebrate!
Go.
The fumble. Moss is his own teammate. Boom! Charles, what are you doing? Man, I'm trying to get to the World Series. You can stand there if you want to.
You know how your big brother and them do it? Hey, you in the middle.
Man,
Not going anywhere.
Look, right, back to the middle, coach. Let's get out of there.
Join us for an all-new Sunday NFL Countdown, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Look, folks, celebrations are back in a big way in the NFL, and this is a very good thing. I mean, we've seen Duck, Duck, Goose from the Vikings, the Packers bobsled, and, of course, hide and seek this past weekend with Juju Smith-Schuster and Le'Veon Bell. But in this Sunday NFL Countdown and NFL Films joint presentation, we find out that in Tennessee, the Titans celebrations started long before the rule changes, and they are cool, and the gang.
The NFL loves to celebrate.
Celebrate! 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 As a team, celebrate! Yes! 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 Yeah! Yeah!
Every team celebrates. But last year, one team embraced celebration.
Started in the preseason, play celebration. It made its way into our locker room. It was a constant theme for our wins.
The Titans are on fire!
Keith Willis was the assistant coach that started it. He's got a lot of energy.
Celebrate, baby! Celebrate good times!
I do that every time it's karaoke night. That's my song.
Celebrate good times! Come on!
The Titans will enjoy us.
There's a party going on right here.
Touchdown, Titans! The Titans take the lead in the division.
Very amazing, you know, the way that song has affected people over the years. It's probably played every day somewhere around the world. At weddings or football games.
The 2016 Titans celebrated a surprisingly good season, just missing the playoffs.
Very, 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 very proud of our football team.
Yeah. Uh-oh, watch it now. They got some moves there. Yeah, go Titans.
I mean, all these young men were born when that song was released. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
They're
20 years old. Yeah. Celebration, 32 years old.
That song just transcends generations because of its meaning. You know, people just think celebration is just, you know, all good times. Sometimes you got to celebrate the bad times just to get to the good time.
After a rough start this year, head coach Mike Mularkey decided the Titans needed to get their mojo back.
Last year, now we started a tradition when Keith Willis got up and sang the song Celebration by Kool and the Gang. Well, we need to get back to it a little bit. Come on down, Keith. I didn't want to say anything to the rookies because I thought they'd be panicking coming in here, so they can start panicking now. Let's get the rookies down here.
All right, get them up here.
Come on, Rooks.
Get
Come
up.
on, Rooks.
Let's go!
You got it, Keith.
Here we go, baby. Give me your hands, baby. Celebrate good times. Come on! Celebrate good times. Come on!
All right. It's not just the rookies that are going to come up here. How about you welcome Kool and the Gang?
To have the group come in just blew my mind.
Oh, wow. Okay, it's great to be here. We were standing out here, we heard everybody singing Celebration. I said, damn, they sound pretty good. Come on. Everything's gonna be alright. There's a party going on right here. A celebration, that's the way it is. Come on, so bring your good times and your laughter too. We gonna celebrate and party with you. Come on now. There you go.
We gon' celebrate, come party with you. Come on now.
There you go. Come on and celebrate.
Wow.
everything is all right. Everything will be all right. It's not always about winning, and it's not always about losing. It's about being together and being in the moment and celebrating good times. That's what it's about. It's being in that locker room together. It's about being blessed to be in that locker room in the National Football League, to be able to compete. That's what it's about. And really, it's a song about celebrating life.
It never gets old to me, you know, because there's going to be a different variation of it, okay, every game we win.
Well, they are